There are reports the government is going to have some form of soft cap on international students. This is part of addressing the issue of a housing shortage. Joining me live is Chief Executive of Group of 8 Universities, Vicki Thomson. Thanks for your time. Not sure what you've heard, but it seems like it would involve a certain cap. If universities want to go beyond that, they'd need to provide housing for the extra students. Those out there trying to rent would say, well, good move. What's your response to that?
Thanks, Tom. Look, the issues surrounding international students and migration numbers and housing numbers are quite complex. And so if the solutions, if the problem's complex, the solution's going to be, not simple. I think there's some different elements here. So it could be a lot worse. We could have an arbitrary cap such as they've introduced in Canada, which we know from talking to our counterparts in Canada has led to a 20% drop in international students. I think what the government has basically said and is doing and is quite public about it is we need to moderate growth. And we're very happy to have that conversation with them about how you do that in a sensible way so that you maintain quality, you maintain integrity, we ensure that we get the students that want to study in Australia's top universities, want to still come here and don't feel that they're being pushed aside. And that we continue to educate so that, we have some who stay, some who go back. They're great ambassadors, as we know. So I think the linking of international students to migration and to caps is sort of an area we're going to have to tread carefully, but one that we're very happy to talk to government with at an institution by institution basis.
Okay. So what about this concept, though, of universities stepping up and doing more on the accommodation front?
So we already do a lot, particularly at the Group of 8 universities. That's who I represent, Australia's globally ranked top 100 universities. And we provide around 83,000 beds for our international students and our domestic student population. Now, there's no doubt that there is an issue in particular cities, Sydney, Melbourne. It's a lot more hot than it is, for example, in Adelaide or in Perth. The Property Council has said that around 4% of accommodation is taken up by international students. So again, this gets to that kind of narrative that international students are taking beds and rental accommodation and forcing up prices. We would dispute that. We've done some work ourselves at the Group of 8. We've done an economic analysis and a deep dive into the link between housing and international students. And we found that there is no direct causal link. The issue is supply, right? And we know that. We know that in the broader community that that's the case. And we also know that it's not a one-size-fits-all model. So where we've got major problems, potentially in our biggest cities, they're not replicated in Perth or in Adelaide or to a lesser extent in Brisbane. So I think that's why we're reasonably comfortable to have a nuanced discussion with government rather than an arbitrary cap across the whole sector.
Right. So, but given that, I mean, I know you say in the macro, this whole it's international students is not true. There could still be markets where that is a factor. I mean, 2 or 3% might sound small, or 4% as you said, but when overall vacancy rates, 1 or 2 percentage point shift can make a big difference. So in areas where there might be a contribution, you're saying universities, you say they already do a lot, and I know you represent the Group of 8, but maybe a bit more could be done?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt that more could potentially be done, and that's the discussion we need to have with government, because the way that it's been characterised to us is that, we're not having an arbitrary cap across the whole sector. Institutions will negotiate their load with the federal government, and so we think that that's a pretty good idea to do that because it's not a one-size-fits-all model. And then if you want to go over that particular cap, potentially you've got to have some skin in the game or more skin in the game to provide purpose-built housing for international students. So we're happy to have those discussions. So I'm not sitting here saying there's not a housing crisis, and I'm not sitting here saying there's not more that we can do. But we've got to be careful how we link those two things together.
All right. Also reports that the visa fee to apply to be an international student, non-refundable, by the way, even if you're not successful, will double. So it's $710, and that's already pretty high, from my understanding, compared to the rest of the world. Is this a blatant cash grab?
Look, it is high compared to our competitor countries, Canada, the UK, New Zealand, the US. it sends a pretty strong signal to our international students around, there's a double whammy there, if you like, in terms of the messaging we're sending out to our international students. So we are very concerned about almost like this double hit on international students, where we have to remember what they actually contribute to this country. There's a huge economic benefit, and we know that from the latest National Australia Bank analysis. And they also contribute to our high-end skills shortages. And so we know only 16% of our international students actually stay in Australia. The Treasurer, the Industry Minister have been on the record to say they'd like more of those high-end skills to stay in Australia once we've educated them. So I guess I go back to there is not a simple solution to this, and we've got to be very careful about the messaging that goes into our regions and our markets about how open we are to attracting those high-end students that we want to attract to our top 100 universities.
Vicki Thomson, we'll see what it all contains tonight on, I'm sure, chat down the track. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.